Chapter 40, Piece of Cake. Why do women make life harder for one another?
Lin Nuan had arrived even earlier than the editor today. She made herself a cup of tea and leaned on the table in the registration room, supporting herself with one hand, immersed in her disordered thoughts. Wen Moshen's frail face appeared, followed by Huai'an's penetrating gaze through the haze. "Why is it only you? Where is your editor Mang Mang?" Xiaonian returned after observing the commotion. She saw Lin Nuan standing alone in the registration room, staring into the distance with her headphones around her neck. There might be a traffic jam since it's Friday night. Lin Nuan took a sip from the cup of tea in her hands. "Are you done fussing?" Xiaonian walked over, leaned on the table next to Lin Nuan and said with a smile, "The more I looked, the more useless it seemed." Everyone knew what kind of person Li was, but the second something like this happened, his wife would attack and beat Wu Qianning instead. She didn't even touch her husband, although she shouted all sorts of vulgarities at him. Sigh. Why do women make life harder for themselves? Men become emboldened in their actions just because there were too many women like Li Zhigui's. These men knew that they would not be hurt if they were caught. Their own husbands cheated on them, yet they blamed another woman instead. How could a beautiful woman in her prime like Wu Qianning be willing to give herself to a dirty old man? As soon as a man develops impure thoughts toward a woman, he does all sorts of corrupt things, especially toward women like Wu Qianning who rely on men to survive and advance in their careers. Wu Qianning made a choice between her body and her future, and she chose the latter. The majority of people in society would choose the latter since people have long been corrupted and have abandoned their principles under the facade of the glamour of the modern age. Compared to investing their blood, sweat and tears into their dreams, trading their bodies for a bright future seemed much easier. "Hey, Lin Nuan is here." The colleague who had just passed the recording room took a few steps back and said, "The director of the morning news department just called you and said it was an emergency. He needs you on set as soon as possible." He then rushed over with the cup of coffee and the files in his arms. Xiaonian and Lin Nuan exchanged a triumphant look. The director of the morning news department, Miss Summer, was a famous badass. She never wasted her time meeting uninteresting people. She must have chosen Lin Nuan to host the morning show when she called her to the set all of a sudden. Xiaonian stood up and stomped her feet in excitement. But she was careful not to be too loud in case other people heard her. She lowered her voice with great effort and said, "Girl, your lucky day has come." Xiaonian was even happier for Lin Nuan than she was herself for having this opportunity. She begged Lin Nuan to rush over there. The morning news station office was on level 13 of the radio station's A building. It takes less than 10 minutes to get there from Building B. It was already late afternoon. The spacious office of the morning news station gave off a cool feeling. Only 7 or 8 employees were organizing scripts and other items in front of the meeting table, looking relatively busy. The rest of the office was empty and quiet. Building B and Building A had a different decor. The entire structure and design of the building was based on glass. Sunlight was streaming into the room through the transparent western windows. The room was covered with a layer of soft orange and the whole office looked spacious and classy, unlike their department. Seeing Lin Nuan step out of the elevator, the staff inside the meeting room pushed open the glass door and asked, "Who are you looking for?"
Chapter 41, We both know the reason. Why did Wen Ling recommend her to Miss Summer?
"I'm Lin Nuan, from the broadcasting department." Lin Nuan introduced himself. "Oh, it's you." Lin Nuan stared at the row of empty desks. Miss Summer's assistant explained with a smile, "Our morning news department is usually the busiest from 4 to 8 in the morning. We finish our meeting around 9 or 10 in the morning, so everyone either goes home to catch up on sleep or goes out to get their stories as a reporter." They arrived at the entrance to Miss Summer's office. Before entering the room, Lin Nuan saw Miss Summer standing in front of her desk. She had short hair and was wearing a white collared shirt with black panties. The table was filled with open files. The sleeve of Miss Summer's shirt was rolled up to her elbow, revealing a pale, thin forearm. She had a lady's cigarette in her mouth that was almost finished. She flipped through her papers nimbly, her eyes slanted. The interior of the office is a cloud of smoke. An entire wall of silent television screens broadcast news from all sorts of channels. Miss Summer's assistant knocked on the glass door before pushing it open. He said, "Miss Summer, Lin Nuan is here." "Let her in," Miss Summer said without looking away from her paperwork, her voice somewhat hoarse from her smoking habits. Miss Summer's assistant smiled at Lin Nuan and made an inviting gesture. "Thank you." Lin Nuan entered the room and stood in front of Miss Summer. Before she could say anything, Miss Summer said, "You may have heard that our department is looking for a morning news anchor. I have no interest in raising a newcomer here, but since Ling's sister is pregnant at 38, she decided to take time off to await her due date in comfort. So I have no choice but to choose a new host." Miss Summer put down the folder she was holding and picked up another. She glanced at the humble Lin Nuan and noticed his clear, sparkling eyes, then continued. "The normal procedure is for the new host to go on the air only after the selection process. But 20 minutes ago, Ling's sister had a fall and was rushed to the hospital. So she won't be able to be present for tomorrow's live broadcast, which leaves me no choice but to find someone else for the job." Miss Summer stubbed out the cigarette in her hands and said bluntly, "Your radio station had recommended Wu Qianying. I heard that she caused a stir there and I don't need someone like her. Ling's sister recommended you to me. I looked at your portfolio and it says here that you were the dean of your faculty in your graduation year, the best student among the candidates for the TV station. Not to mention that you are a pretty girl. I think we both know why you were stuck at the radio station for so many years." Lin Nuan was amazed at Miss Summer's efficiency. Since the beginning of the accident, she had already managed to accomplish so much in 20 minutes. But Lin Nuan had never had any contact with the morning show host before, so why had Wen Ling recommended her to Miss Summer? "I hope you won't let me down," Miss Summer said, looking up at Lin Nuan. "I understand." Lin Nuan nodded his head. "By the way." Miss Summer took out a long woman cigar and pinched it between her fingers. "Here's a little reminder for you. Live TV broadcasting is different from audio broadcasting. If you want to go far, you need to have a style that is unique to you. You can think about that when you get home."
Chapter 42, The cat was supposed to be Lin Nuan's gift. Lin Nuan gave Miss Summer a piece of advice after leaving her office.
Maybe it was the pleasant impression Lin Nuan gave Miss Summer. She always seemed so composed and humbled despite such an opportunity, or maybe it was the fact that Lin Nuan would rather stay at the radio station than sacrifice her body to further her career. Miss Summer had come to like and love her. That's why she decided to give her some advice. Lin Nuan entered the elevator after leaving Miss Summer's office. She presses the button for the second floor. She looked up and saw the screen inside the elevator broadcasting the news of Wen Moshen's return after disappearing for 4 years on flight T-324. The reporters were interviewing Gu Hanyan, who had just been released from the hospital. Gu Hanyan told the press that Wen Moshen had not yet woken up and thanked them for their care for him. Everyone was well aware that Gu Hanyan was Wen Moshen's amber. He cherished her as if she was the only precious stone in the world. Gu Hanyan never revealed that she had a boyfriend during all those years when Wen Moshen was missing. So the media naturally turned the story of Gu Hanyan and Wen Moshen into a story where the princess in love is faithfully waiting for the return of her other half. Some even claimed that it was Gu Hanyan and Wen Moshen's unbreakable love that made Wen Moshen's return possible. The people who had just arrived from the elevator were also discussing Gu Hanyan and Wen Moshen. Listening to the people in the elevator applauding the legendary love story of these two, Lin Nuan looked at the floor and silently moved to the corner of the elevator. The news of Lin Nuan's presence in the morning news department came to the radio department later. After the scandal between Wu Qianying of the traffic show and Li Zhigua of the radio show broke out, Wu Qianying was sent directly to the hospital after being beaten, and Lin Nuan was suddenly transferred to the television department. The management of the broadcasting department sank into chaos. It was easier to manage the broadcasting traffic since Wu Qianying had a partner who could host the show alone. But Lin Nuan had gone solo with her own show from the beginning. Her channel had the largest audience, and it was unclear who would be able to take her place immediately after she left. Aunt Li was off today and Fu Huai'an had a business trip to make, so he decided to take Tuan with him. Tuan was convinced that Fu Huai'an was going to send him to his mother. He took out his suitcase shaped like a race car and started to fill it with his favorite clothes, toys, and books. Fu Huai'an stood in front of Tuan's brightly colored bedroom door and said with a frown, "You don't need to bring so many toys. The race car and dolls are unnecessary, you should make room for your pajamas, hoodie and shoes." Filling his suitcase with his butt in the air, Tuan turned around and said with perfect enunciation in a childish voice, "My pajamas are at Mom's." Fu Huai'an suddenly remembered that Tuan's suitcase was still at Lin Nuan's house. As the doorbell rang, Fu Huai'an rubbed his slightly sore temples and said to Tuan, "Don't pack too many toys. I'll come check later." Fu Huai'an went downstairs to open the door. Fu Huai'an's assistant stood in front of the door, carrying a cat cage in his hands. On the doorstep, there was cat food, a cat bed, cat toys, cat litter and other cat items. "Boss, this is the cat you wanted." Lin Nuan looked depressed when she went to the animal hospital today. So Fu Huai'an went to ask a nurse at the hospital about it. She said Lin Nuan's cat wasn't going to make it, which made Fu Huai'an suddenly remember the picture of Lin Nuan hugging it. The cat was supposed to be a gift for her.